See, largely we call ourselves a company doing business relating to mobility. Okay, but primarily we are into tires, tubes, and flaps. If you really want to understand about our geographical split, 80% of the business is approximately India. 20% of our revenue comes from international business. And among categories of our focus, CEAT is more known for passenger vehicle usage, which is cars and two-wheelers. And that is also reflected in terms of our own market share. Our own revenue share and market share is more on two-wheelers, followed by passenger car. And we are little less known in commercial vehicles. Our market share is about 12 to 14% or so. So primary focus on passengers. In the last few years, we have also shifted our focus to something called as off-highway tires. Internally, we call it a specialty tire business. Its focus is more on the international side, okay, where the opportunities are huge. Indian companies who are into specialties are doing well. So if you look at revenue share in terms of category, about 30% would be commercial category of tires, about 30% would be two-wheeler tires, and closer to about 20% would be our passenger, and balance is other categories of tires. That's the way our revenue split is. Relative to some of our competing countries, okay, India is in a good position as far as tires is concerned. So therefore, Indian economy and Indian economic growth has a lot to do with our own growth, because tires are on the wheels. Okay, so today if a truck has to move from place A to place B, okay, it can move. A tire is the one which touches. It's a link between the vehicle and the road. So therefore, from our point, we are happy that we are part of an industry which is directly linked to the economic activity of the country. And globally, we are, as a country, we compete a lot with China. Okay, so in case of tires, I think we can compete competitively with China, not only on quality parameters, okay, but even on the cost parameters, considering that there is no disadvantage with respect to the inputs that go into the manufacture of tires. So therefore, one of the important focus area for us is to make sure that the tires that we produce also is safe, because when you leave your home, your family is always worried, particularly when you're driving, okay, and the tires that are fitted in the vehicles, if that gives you protection in terms of safety, that makes your thing comfortable. Same thing applies to anybody else, even on a commercial vehicle, so that's important. Second, it's also important as a responsible organization and responsible industry, we also contribute positively to the environment. These are important features for our industry. One of the challenges that our industry always faces, okay, and it happens, look, in a cycle of 4 years or 5 years, we'll always have one difficulty arising out of a commodity price inflation. Okay, so therefore this challenge will not go away. Okay, we can mitigate the impact to an extent possible by being present in the right categories, by making our brand a preferred brand, customers willing to pay a premium for it because of the product quality features and performance features. So therefore, the industry always has the challenge. Suddenly, if any geopolitical event, one of the consequences of that is always sudden impact on the crude oil prices, and also other commodities always sympathize with crude, and so therefore that impacts us. And all of us know in the last 3-4 years has been very eventful in terms of geopolitical events. So suddenly a $70-$80 crude can go up to $140 and $130. So that's one of the challenges. It will not go away, but the impact can go down over a period of time for a company of some size. The recent phenomenon has been, some uncertainties with respect to the US on account of tariff. There is an impact as India is a net exporter of tires. As far as we are concerned, we have also launched truck and bus radial tires and passenger car radial tires in the US market in the last 12 months. It took about 3.5-4 years to develop tires because road conditions are different. Similarly, another area of focus, which is our farm radial tires or off-highway tires, is also one where we thought it's in a market where we can go and grow and give value proposition to the customers. So that's one uncertainty that is there. Some of the incidental ones is the impact that commodities have on currencies in India. Geopolitical impact, not only having impact on crude oil, but also on the availability of vessels, the transit times, etc. These are the headwinds that we normally encounter. And that is what, look, in a way, makes our job interesting and challenging. We don't want to come into office without any challenges. And sometimes when going gets tough, tough gets going is what people say. So how do you respond in such situations? Also differentiate an organization from any other organization. In terms of tailwinds, our industry is a capital-intensive industry. You can put it as a challenge, or it can also put it as an opportunity. When it is a capital-intensive industry, not many people would be too keen to invest too much, particularly new ones into that one. It is not a tailwind, but it is one thing which we should take cognizance of it. Tailwind is like, EVs. Okay, a lot of focus from original equipment manufacturers on sustainable tires. Okay, and world looking for an alternative. Our tires meeting the international standards, we meeting the global requirements on various parameters, would help us to become more and more relevant and important from that perspective. A lot of our growth in the future, we would like to be in the international business. Like, for example, in the beginning I said 20% of our revenue comes from international. We would like to take it up to 25%. No, I say every regulation, every challenge, the other side of the coin is an opportunity. Okay, so because so long as it is not unique to your organization, and if it is specific to industry, so every player in the industry will face. So how do you convert some of them? Some of the changes that have happened in the last few years, particularly with respect to regulation, one of the important things that came into effect a couple of years back was called as EPR, Extended Producer's Responsibility on Tires. Okay, and it came at a very short notice, I would say. Very quickly, year one, we were supposed to recycle tires that we produced 3 years prior to that date, to the extent of 1/3, then 70%, and third year 100%. So therefore, every tire that we produce and sell in India, we have responsibility to recycle it responsibly. One way of looking at it, it gives us a satisfaction that we are contributing positively to the environment. So these are some things which we should take it as a part of our doing business. So, but it happened at a relatively a short notice, and it happened at a time when we were going through this huge commodity cost inflation related challenges. So that is one. Consistently, like labeling related requirements. Okay, and regular requirements from OEMs with respect to something called as rolling resistance, which improves the fuel economy of the tires, etc. For us to export in Europe, okay, like for example, there are regulatory requirements like in terms of where the rubber is sourced. Okay, it's called as EUDR, those regulatory related requirements. Many countries across the world are continuously making some improvements, some additional requirements or not. One is meeting those. Second is also, before doing that, it's important to understand what means, and making necessary changes in the entire supply chain so that we are able to meet the requirements not only by the rule of book but also by spirit of law. Life has never been boring in the last year. Continuously some event or the other has been happening for us for the last 10 years. It could be as simple as, suddenly Indian economy came to a halt when demonetization happened. And very quickly, within few months, GST rollout happened in India. Okay, so like that, continuously something or the other keeps impacting us. So therefore, you have a short-term plan, you have a long-term plan. So financial planning is about not having a rigid plan, but having enough flexibility in it. Okay, so in CEAT as a company, we also have certain other relevant functions which are a part of finance. For example, projects is part of finance in CEAT, procurement is part of finance in CEAT, legal function is part of CEAT. Till recently, IT function was part of it. Why I'm bringing it to this is, in a capital intensive industry, when you allocate capital, Okay, it is important that we provide growth capital regularly, so that we are able to grow. Okay, and scale of operations do play a very important role for a particular company to be very competitive. So therefore, what are the one of the important deliverables from a CFO of a company is to have a robust, at the same time flexible capital allocation, and second is in terms of overall financial planning part of it. So what are the flexibilities that we try to bring? With respect to capital allocation, we have been spending a lot of capex to add growth. We have added new factories. Okay, we have expanded our existing factories. So there's been a lot of brownfield and greenfield. I just mentioned to you about an acquisition of a business, overseas acquisition, competing with some global big players and buying a company from the biggest in the world. Okay, required some amount of financial acumen and knowledge, etc. So which means that you have to allocate capital. So therefore, how do you manage capital in such a way that you manage the liquidity or leverage in a balanced way? While a lot of people say, I don't want the organization to be over leveraging. I know over leveraging is bad, but it doesn't mean that under leveraging is good. So from that point of view, how do you bring balance? So for example, if you want to go and add capacities, some major disturbance happens like COVID, okay, or maybe demonetization or etc. Suddenly, activities come to a halt. It takes a while for the business to turn around. At that point in time, in the entire project planning, how do you plan upstream? How do you plan downstream? Okay, how do you create flexibility with respect to cash flows? Okay, how do you ensure that you bring in some efficiency in working capital? We have a good story on working capital. Okay, I used to work for Hindustan Lever and Unilever for 20 years. One of the things that finance guys used to take pride is about, our working capital is negative. Okay, so a few years back, our working capital was close to about 900 crores when we are 40% of today in terms of revenue. Today, our working capital used to be 45, 48 days of our revenue. I'm happy to tell you for last 3 to 4 years, our working capital has been negative, consistently quarter on quarter. So a lot of that funding requirement, capital requirement, we were able to unlock a lot of money from working capital and use that money for the purpose of, our capacity expansion and growth capital. That is one. So second is, and when you deploy capital, create enough flexibility. Third one is have very good discipline in terms of capital allocation. In the beginning, to your first question, I said passenger, our specialty, then other categories. So have the discipline in terms of allocating capital also in the order of this priority. And fourth is always, business is all about taking some risks, okay, and reward also has something to do. Risk in a way that you could manage, okay, balance, have a very good performance management system. In the TQM philosophy, we call it as daily work management. Have a rigorous review process for you to take necessary actions and things like that. I didn't mention, but see, in a tire industry, 60 to 70% of revenue is actually the equivalent amount of raw material cost. If our revenue is, say, 10,000 crores, say this year, like 14,000 crores, our raw material cost alone would be in the order of 8,000 to 9,000 crores. Okay, and margin variation between the time periods also would have something to do with what has happened to the commodity prices during this intervening period. So from our standpoint, okay, and we also benchmark our gross margins and operating margins with best in the industry, some of the large players in India, etc. So to reduce the margin gap, it is important for a CFO and also the rest of the organization to have some structured long-term cost efficiency programs. And COVID gave us an opportunity to look at our costs on a zero-based basis. Okay, instead of looking at incremental improvements over the base, okay, could we look at many other things? Because we had enough time. Honestly, we were sitting at home, operating, so that helped in terms of saving time to travel, to work, saving time that we would have traveled to go to various other places, etc. And all of us were available for us to have some meaningful discussions. So we created multiple cross-functional teams to look at opportunities across the spectrum, end to end. And a lot of insights came, a lot of initiatives that we took. Okay, and what we initially thought was a one-year activity, that it created some momentum, not only in terms of bringing cost efficiency, also in motivating people, bringing a larger organization together to identify structured improvement programs in the area of energy costs, in the area of wastages, in the area of claims, in the area of employee cost productivity, even in the area of capital productivity and things like that. We are happy our margin gap has been coming down steadily with the competition. Could be one of the indicators in terms of our outcomes are yielding results. It's an ongoing, okay, you can never reach a saturation point with respect to cost. Okay, every year we bring few areas to a higher level of focus and work on them and try to deliver some big improvements. Okay, see, look, from automation in finance started in terms of we imbibing RPA. Okay, I wouldn't say that we fully leverage all technology that is relevant for finance is fully utilized in our organization. Many a times I feel guilty. Look, could we spend a little more time at personal level? Could our function lead from the front with respect to leveraging technology, and then inspire other functions and other people and other organizations, etc. In terms of that, I would still not like to give a very high score on this, despite the fact that we are aware that there are opportunities. So our journey actually started with RPA. We didn't understand RPA that well to start with. So what we decided is that we will take some 10 areas, okay, and then see whether RPA will work. Our level of confidence among the team members was okay, not very high. This journey started about 6 years back. We engaged one of the big fours to help, and then we said, out of that, let us go ahead and do. And RPA involved some amount of investment. Okay, and for you to engage some external person who can come and study the entire work process. In this point of view, they came and said, look, I'll study the entire process. And if these are the high manpower intensive roles, can we automate it? Okay, and then it took a little bit of time for us to do it, but we could identify successfully about 6 to 8 areas where we could successfully implement RPA, and later on, whole organizations started working on RPA. Blockchain, we were one of the first in the industry in India to use blockchain for a cross-border transaction where it made a role. We are not very excited in terms of blockchain as a concept within India, but like, for example, when you are importing materials, end-to-end documentation, can we put it in blockchain? It had a lot of what we call it as COPQ, cost of poor quality. We were wasting a lot of money in terms of demurrage and things like that. That was one area. Okay, and few other areas, we have started working on, but I would still say work in progress. RPA, blockchain, SAP scripting, and few other areas we have made a journey, but this is one area we would like to learn more from others. No, look, before all of us started talking about ESG, in some ways, this group, RPG group, believed in certain values, certain human values. You are in this office, if you actually step out and spend few minutes, you will see some people who are blind working in this organization. If you visit our factory, you will see some transgenders working. If you go to the shop floor of the factory, you would be surprised, more than 20% of employees working in shop floor carrying out manufacturing activity would be women. Newer factories has even a higher share. All these things were done not because externally ESG was looked at positively in terms of evaluating progressive organization. So it's a basic belief. From ESG standpoint, so over a period of time, there was no need for any external person to come and emphasize the importance of ESG within this group, because that was ingrained basically in terms of you have to be top class on governance, you have to be very relevant to the society, you have to be supporting environment, etc. In some way or the other, it was there. From our standpoint, I think we are extremely committed with respect to ESG, not just because of company, but I also feel people would respect us as a finance person or a senior leader of the organization, not in terms of articulating company's ESG strategy, but also in terms of articulating what is that my function, what that I do with respect to this. I was very happy to participate in it. I strongly feel the role of finance is not to report ESG, but I think influence the outcome of the ESG. That's what I genuinely and personally feel. So what are the specific things that we could do in terms of ESG outcomes? Okay, within CEAT, during the COVID period, we created something called as Energy Board. Okay, as of today, I chair that Energy Board. We decided, look, we will go actually make a big change with respect to the type of energy that we consume. Significant improvement is what we have to make. We were about 5-6% of our energy was to be clean energy. We ended at 42%. We are working towards 60%. In terms of what are the different forms in which in reality you go wind, you go and scout for solar, you go for other forms of energy that you could get. And that requires deeper understanding of that subject. It is not a definition of finance which will help you to do it, but actually engaging with people and make those decisions in your capital allocation, ensure the capital is allocated in terms of otherwise driving it and making sure money is first utilized for this purpose. Hopefully, in the next 12 months, even with the growth, we would try to go towards 60% with an ambition to see why it cannot be 100% in real terms. And so therefore, currently, we are in a discussion to go for a group captive kind of a power. All our factories roof is fully filled with solar powers. Okay, and then hybrid power, wind and solar in all our states where we are manufacturing. It requires deeper understanding of this. So therefore, it's a very important element without anybody enforcing it in terms of all of us playing a role in achieving the outcome of the ESG is what I want to say. More at a high level, we have a system whereby we identify top 50 risks in the organization and then we look at give score on 3 parameters. What is the probability of that happening? What is the impact of that particular risk? Okay, and our ability to mitigate. These are the parameters we give score. And the one where we are able to mitigate, we don't have action plan to mitigate and high impact ones are focused more. And we present some top 20 risks with a mitigation plan, while we have for all 50 to our risk management committee of the organization. Also systematically, risks at company level, all business related risks are identified. One of the things that we do, like obviously all our exposures of currencies, as and when it happens, we have clear policy with respect to hedging. Okay, one of the underlying principles around it, which we have to re-emphasize consistently, is that anything that you try to mitigate, risk management process should mitigate risk, should not increase the intensity of the risk. Sometimes your risk mitigating actions would be like, no, I'll go for this option, I'll go for this, etc. Does it mitigate or does it also have capability to this? And structurally find out all. Now, as we are becoming global and global, even materials that are bought locally has got import parity built into it, which means currency built into it. Systematically mitigating them and at regular intervals is one. Margin related and cost related. We try to pass on the incidence of cost, okay, but it doesn't happen always, all the time. And so there is also a lag. So therefore, in terms of pricing effectiveness, it's important. Third one is about cost, things that I mentioned to you, multiple measures that we take. Last is scale of operation also in a way can mitigate the risk. With respect to capital allocation, CapEx, we are agile and flexible. Many a times we will try to keep some flexibility. Upstream, keep it constant. Downstream investments, keep some flexibility. As you get closer to the period of demand, add capacities. Engage with suppliers and create some amount of flexibility. And plant sweating the assets. First sweat our assets before you add. These are some of the ways in which consistently we measure. No, see, look, as a progressive Indian company, it's important for us to contribute to making progress in the entire ecosystem. Okay, and so which means, as you rightly mentioned, supply chain point of view, localizing, developing them is an important part. Let's assume capacity is a constraint from vendor's point of view. Then we go and sign a longer period arrangement to them saying, look, I will source this next to 10 years, this kind of a volume. Okay, and in terms of our own process or a policy is to generally we work with same set of partners. We don't try to be tactical. We try to be little more longer period engagement with them. So very rarely we move away from an existing supply partner to another partner, unless and that there are quality related reasons or other compliance related reasons, etc. So develop an ecosystem. Even as a tire industry, 4 tire companies in India, okay, top 4 companies in India is investing 1,000 crores in northeast part of the country, only 4 Indian companies, to add another 200,000 tons of natural rubber. Then 200,000 tons of natural rubber would be available for anybody. And we signed up with Commerce Ministry and said, okay, we'll go. You can always say it's not my job. Okay, but there are times which make you happy, even if only 4 companies in India are contributing. For us, 1,000 crores is a lot of money for the 4 companies. Are we unhappy? No. In part of ESG, we don't call it. But if you go and make a difference to the northeast part of country people, it makes a difference. Providing skills and capabilities to local people and ensuring that ecosystem develops, because material can come faster to you, capital equipment can come faster to you, etc. A lot of work has happened. At the industry level, even northeast natural rubber is one of the examples. I don't know how many industries have made this kind of a large contribution in terms of developing a system. I also carry a designation called as Managing Director for our CEAT Bangladesh business. I told you I also have responsibility on projects. I'm not a technical guy, okay, but I love to work. I always tell our project people, you don't have to have a basic qualification. Beyond a point, developing an appreciation, genuinely trying to understand and empower people based on what comes to you with maybe your reasonable understanding of it. So therefore, you grow in an organization if you make an impact to the business. You don't grow in an organization by just doing only your operational work well, not by doing only repeated work well. Many times in our engagements, people will say why they could not achieve it. I always tell them, look, it is always a very interesting conversation if you come and explain why despite difficulties, we delivered it. Okay, and at a senior level, okay, the span of attention is always short. Okay, you don't have to say only good things. You have to balance it. Same financial in our areas of work. Okay, so for you to be an effective business partner or effective leader, it's important for you to develop that business acumen. Important for you not only to highlight issues, also to come out with solutions and take responsibility to execute those solutions. And at the same time have courage to say no when you don't want to say yes, or don't say yes when you want to say no, because that's a functional thing that you have to do. It's not, job is not to please a person, job is to say. In the meetings and discussions, you should be prepared. Not all your recommendations or views will be accepted. Okay. In my case, half of my things that I say is not accepted. Okay, but I don't take it too seriously. Job is to, and once a decision is taken, when you leave a room, you have to make sure those agreed actions are implemented, and you cannot go back and question those. You've done it, you try, and don't take it very personal. Any differences, it's good to have different viewpoints. Good to have sometimes some unpleasant exchange of words, also in the meetings and discussions and things like that. Once you leave the room, you should leave that room and then go, and never carry it with you. Okay, so it's okay if your things are not agreed. It's not necessary you have to make organization agree, but express your point of view, try your best, and if you think you are right, say so. Finally, go by the decision that company makes. I think it helps in terms of for you to go back home and sleep peacefully. And last thing that I would like to say is that, it's possible for our organization to be ethical and still successful.